Good afternoon. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. Good evening. Well, no, good afternoon, Belinda, right?
Yeah, good
Yes.
afternoon for me, and good morning to you, Alina.
Yes, we're just stepping towards afternoon in Romania. It is already 12:30 in the afternoon, and I think Belinda, for you, it is what, like 5 o'clock? You're going towards evening now, right?
And we're going towards evening now for me. Ah, yeah. So
Right.
past
So
morning.
we are starting today within the umbrella of Coaching and Mentoring Festival. We are starting a new stream of conversation, and this is dedicated to a topic that might be sensitive or maybe taboo, which is death. But death in all aspects. I mean, it is in the I would say in the very physical aspect, but it is also in the symbolical and metaphorical aspects. And the conversation today, it's going to bring, I think, a cultural perspective. I have my dear friend Belinda Choong with me. Belinda is in Malaysia, and of course, because it is the first time, people that maybe have seen other videos with Coaching and Mentoring Festival, they might know me. They might, be tired of me. But Belinda, if you want to say a couple of words about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is my first time on this platform. So I'm from Malaysia. I live in Kuala Lumpur. I'm of a Chinese roots, Chinese heritage, born in Malaysia. So I'm Malaysian, and Malaysia has majority Muslim Malay race, and come second will be the Chinese, who are migrants usually from China, and I am the third generation of Chinese, born in Malaysia. And we also have the Indians, very similar to the Chinese, who are also migrants. And then we have of course, the people of the land of Malaysia itself, you know. And so I practice a mixture of Taoism and Buddhism, because that's the two main religion in for the Chinese. And because of a migration, so there's something that culturally adopted from our roots, and there's some that has been modified. you know so we do have a very gray area between Taoism and Buddhism, and what's cultural as well,
Mm.
for me.
Yes, and I think when we touch upon death and these and rituals of closure, as we said it, of course we are strongly, there is a spiritual component. And when we say spiritual, we do not mean religion, but we do mean this component of values and beliefs. And I think it is indeed very helpful um, to underline what are, like, well, the framework or the paradigm in which you grew up, because then I can say, yes, I'm as in my paradigm where I was raised was um, Greek Orthodox, and well, living in Netherlands, it exposed me. Actually, when we moved to Netherlands, I was out of that paradigm, because obviously it isn't that you have an entire country doing this, and I got into this land that had different paradigm, different spiritual, but also a multipart, right, a mixture of cultures. And then I got to explore and everything. But that was, my roots are in that space of Greek Orthodox. And I guess when we talk about the rituals of passing, there is a strong influence, I would say, from this paradigm or this, well, religion, or I think it's something to explore when we get to this topic. But maybe before
Yeah.
we jump into that, maybe it is good to say well, a little bit why this topic, why talk about death? Because it is heavy, and I think it is something that's been calling me to explore. It has been in my life. Fortunately, unfortunately, I got to say goodbye to um, many of my family members too soon, and then I got to be part of this process, and it did something to me, of course, and I think it impacted me as a person with all my hats, as a person, but also as a professional, because going through those life experiences, I was able to look for means to balance, for look for answers for myself, and actually, ultimately, as always, it's not about the destination; it's rather the journey that to get there. And having that journey gave me the toolbox, but also the peace or the strength to accompany other people in their own closure journeys. And when I mean closure, it is that, somebody dear has left, so there is a separation process, but it isn't just that. It can be that it is a divorce, or it can be that it is, a termination of a work and work life, anything that is ending and it has a strong emotional impact. And it gave me the chance to look, because if you think on change management or transition management, it's heavily relying on the Kubler-Ross research, which was actually, it started with um, interviewing or looking, patients meeting death and all of that. So it came from a place of grieving, right?
Mhm.
Nevertheless, based on that, there were other things that are being used in organization, in day-to-day life, in therapy, and there is something there that is connecting. And also, what I discovered along the way is that all fears all fears are actually rooted in the fear of death. And what is death? So that sends somebody, what is death to me? How do we get to the concept of death? So Belinda, we know each other now for, well, since 2019. So this is the fourth year in our life journey together. You're a sister, as I call, a soul sister for me. We were brought together by my husband. And then we had such an amazing connection beyond words, beyond cultures, beyond what you see in front of your eyes. And I'm so grateful that you have accepted my invitation to explore this topic, this topic that is not easy, um, together. And I'm curious, when I invited you, what drawn you into taking this journey with me?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, little reflection space. Yeah, yeah, the reason why I've accepted the invitation of talking about this journey, closure, because within the 4 years of knowing you, I have actually lost two very significant people in my life, my father and my father-in-law. And yeah, I would say within this decade, I actually lost uh, you know loved ones, that are very close to me. And that got me thinking, to do reflection on, like, what is actually death, and every experience along the journey, it made me reflect on how do I define death, what it is. Is it really just a physical death? Your soul leave your body, and that's the end, right? But what happens after, and all that, it was like I said, I'm from a very Chinese roots, and it was a very taboo to even think about it, or even open a conversation about it. Nobody wants to speak to you about that. Like you say, it's a fear. There's a lot of fear around it. Um, Fear of the unknown, fear of, inviting the thought, and the fear that, if you talk about it, you're inviting that into your life. And every time I go through this experience, I come out having a different definition. I redefine it, how about the closure, about the ritual, about endings, because I looked at it as not just physical now, I have to say. I look at it, from uh, like emotionally, mentally, and physically, because like we said, death, happens, and then there is a new beginning. Without that, there's no new beginning, and that's how I look at it now. And actually, I faced it more than just losing someone physically. It could be changing of a work environment, changing jobs, that's also a closure. That's also an ending, and however, that one is more emotional. And sometimes, uh, I don't grieve because, I looked at death differently at that time. So when I go through the journey of life of having that experience, and I allow myself to grieve, it's it has a very, very it brings a lot of calmness and peace to the closure, because you actually go through all the stages of grief, like
Yes,
most of us know. And so
indeed.
that's why I took that invitation.
And thank you for that. And when you mentioned your relationship with death, it made me think when I started to encounter, and of course, at the beginning was, I lost a grandfather, but then my parents were there, and okay, it was my entire family was there. And then it started, I lost my dad. Um, and that was rather soon. He was 61. And after that, I lost my mom, also rather soon. She was 67, and then I lost my brother, and he died before turning 45. And there were parallel processes. He got sick, and while we were observing my mom, unfortunately, dealing with dementia. And actually, what is living, even that experience invited me, what is living, because at some point, looking at my mom and knowing my mom, how wonderfully uh, warm, caring, person she was. And then it felt like, at some point, it felt like she was a living dead, because somehow her
That's
light was, but she was still there, and there were parts of her that recognized us, and there were parts of us that we were holding on. And but there was that saying goodbye multiple times, and seeing somebody fading away while breathing, and that was a different type of death, a death of, I don't know, of presence, of personality. And actually, when we thought about this, a conversation. See, I didn't think of this. She just came to mind now. This type of death, a living death, especially for people that have like maybe Alzheimer or dementia, and anyone who has a dear one around that either took that journey, out of life, or maybe dealing now, will probably resonate with this. And also having my brother, out of nowhere coming sick with cancer, and his journey, and up to the end, and then losing my aunt actually 2 weeks after my mom. Just that was a complete shock, surprise, compared with my mom's journey, which we knew that at some point, we had years of preparation, because we kind of knew what is going to happen. And so I had all of these experiences and no time to process. And actually, only after everyone has left, I found myself into a space of profound sadness. And I think my children kind of brought me back and gave me this feedback about why aren't you happier, because they weren't seeing that part, right? And I had this choice, and I love, entering every year, with you and I, we know that we kind of have this reflection at the beginning in the year. So what do I want for this year? And then
Mhm.
there was a turnaround when I said, and now I want to step into light. I want to come back to life, because I was so much with them, and in sadness and grieving and being occupied with all of this. And that was a turning point, and taking that journey. um yeah, it was a process of looking, what is that to me. And
I
yeah,
have to
what.
add also, there was the guilt of, of there's a guilt of being alive, and I'm the only one alive, where else, yeah, the others are dead. That's in my family, especially when it's a close family member.
Yes,
Right.
yes, I think that's a very good point. And I think there will be, we won't focus on that today, because that is a more of what is happening to us, and how do we meet that. But yes, I think it's a very powerful point that you bring, the guilt of being um surviving the rest, so
Survive.
yeah, surviving the rest is like, where did everybody go, and why I'm still standing, and how long am I still standing, so because there is, I won't lie, there is that question as well, and that invites for your own mortality. So there's a number of things that are happening there. Of course, it is, well, what is death, how do I feel about it, but also I have children. I am a young person. Well, I saw my brother, going through it. So how do I still enjoy, and I am here present in my life, and make the most of it? And that actually, in that search and reading and taking many, many forms of exploration, and ultimately healing and grieving, as you say, there was this concept about all fears are coming from the fear of death. And until each of us looks into the eyes of death, or kind of goes there mentally or emotionally, or faces this, you're not really fully living, because you are just one step away of being afraid of losing, of, I don't know, I think it's a dissolution of identity. And preparing for this session, I was reading some things, and I saw a quote from Byron Katie, and actually we have included in the promo a quote from Byron Katie, who says that until we know that death is equal to life, we live in fear. So you actually live but you live in fear, a fear of something, a fear of getting sick, a fear of dying, a fear of losing your job, a fear of ultimately you fear an ending if you think about it. Yes. So um I think this is why these conversations, this is why this series, because we live here and now, and we give our joy and power away when we think about the future, a potential future. Oh, I might be dying. Do I carry a gene in my body? Do I have cancer? I mean, I have so many people with cancer in my family. So am I being busy? Where do I invest my time, my focus, and my energy? Am I going to think about this? When am I going to die? Am I going to get to see my children growing? Those are
Mhm.
things that live in you. But then if your mind or your energy, I'm practicing Qigong, and in Qigong you say that where the attention goes or where your mind goes, the energy follows, right? So if I'm
Yeah.
busy with that, how can I embrace my children? How can I enjoy and be in joy in this moment and actually live? And what I notice a lot is many people give this power away. And what is coaching? And I think there's a role for coaching and mentoring in just fostering and cultivating awareness, and awareness
Yeah.
here and now.
If you don't look fear in the eye, right? And
Yes.
yeah, that's why we wanted this conversation is to look death in the eye and explore the topic, you know. And it's basically
With the corner, of an
yeah,
eye, or in the mirror, or somehow, just look at it on through somebody else's eye, or maybe just be in a room where people are talking, or maybe from the distance, but just somehow stop and think on that.
and even death itself, is it really the fear of, like you said, there's so many fears that's related to that. It's also the fear of unknown, the fear of pain, and yeah, unless you look them, and claim your power back, you will be not living in the present.
Yes, and this is the reason very much about this a topic, and we already touched upon it, because we come here in this conversation. Look, there are grieving experts, right? So there are techniques and things like that. But when it comes to death, this is not a topic that somebody can say that it has an expertise. Or you can have an expertise in the sense that you can have the coroner, and then the doctor will bring somebody who is in palliative care, will bring that perspective, somebody who's a grieving counselor, a pastor, any type of religious, let's say, space holder. I don't know how to call it, somebody who takes care or supports a person in this journey. So there's a place for everybody, and everybody has a role. Do we have an expertise on death? No. I mean, do we have an expertise on life? Yes. I mean, into the point that each of us has that wisdom. And so me and Belinda were coming today from a place of I am. I am, with all our hats, with all our dimensions, with all our perspectives, and just a profound place of heart and sharing, and just reflection on it. Um, and when we look, we put some ideas, and we were talking with Belinda. I was like, let it flow. We walk in trust that the conversation will flow. We put some anchors for the conversation, like to touch upon the concept of death, rituals of passing, and talk a little bit about our countries, or our experiences, because as you were rightly pointed out, even in a country you have multiple ways, even in a family You have multiple
Yeah.
ways of dealing with death or rituals of passing, and absolutely everything. It's okay, absolutely. So this is a place of learning. Now, how do we develop the concept of death? And I think our relationship we touched a little bit upon it, because we kind of said how death well confronted us, to be very honest, because it wasn't that we went to look for it. And how do we develop this um, concept of death, when we think of death?
Yeah, it's a. I have to say, I've the first encounter for me was when I was in my teen years. So I've lost two cousins. They were drowned in a. They live about 2 hours away from Kuala Lumpur, where I lived, and they went swimming in a mining pool, in Ipoh. So that's a town where it's known for tin mining. And they drowned. So the three of them went swimming. It was my youngest brother and the other two cousins. The three of them went swimming, and two of them drowned and passed away. And my youngest brother was immediately removed, from the whole ritual, and he was brought home. And we as children, we not only did not partake in the ritual at all, so we didn't go and pay respect. We completely don't know what went on. However, the first experience was very shocking, because I lost two cousins, and we don't talk about it. It was like, it was not a written rule that you can't say anything about it, but it was almost an unwritten rule, in the family, that we don't say anything, we don't we don't say their name anymore. um, we almost pretended that, they've never been born, you know yeah. And there was obviously no grieving processes for the children, like, how do we deal with this, as a Chinese family. So I had this concept that, that my first encounter, how you're so impressionable when it's your first encounter. So, like, that death is a taboo, it's a curse, and it's like a punishment. It's a So it was also, yeah, that was the impression that I've got, that it was a punishment from God, that you did something. It's not whether it's karma or whether it's something that you did wrong in your life, and therefore you punish, and you are taken away way too early. you know so and
Yes.
then that's why I say, throughout my life journey, and after losing a lot of other family members, I have come to redefine that, it is not a punishment, it's not a curse, and to a point that, I find that it is just an ending, it's a completion of something, of your life, your life lesson, or what you're here to do on earth. What Yeah. And then I also lost my niece about 7 years back, and she was only 8 at that time. And that really made me it brought back um, a lot of the memories about my old definition about death. you know is it really a curse, is it really a punishment? Yeah. And yeah. However, at that time, like, it's 7 years ago, so I was able to grieve. I had a lot more wisdom that, so we do talk about it. We grieve with the children. And in the Chinese culture, a lot of the children are really, uh, yeah, they are. really absent in the complete rituals and the whole death uh, or the passing, rituals, unless it's a very close family members, because uh, it's also the concept that there's a lot of negativity surrounding it, and if you bring the children, then that might invite death into their life, and too early maybe to expose them, so they're always kept away from it.
Yes, well, that makes me, it invited in me, a journey into my childhood. And actually, it made me quite grateful towards my parents. I think that, first of all, I could see in a split moment, looking at this, that it changed. So there was a way. So I'm from Romania, I'm from Moldova, I'm from Iași in the northeast. And even in Moldova region, there are many different ways, because my husband comes from a different, more like to the north. And with passing of my father-in-law last year, I saw that their rituals, for instance, of passing, they're different, right? What they do, and this refers to the second point. So I think they are intertwined when I think of the concept of death and the rituals of passing, because I remember as a child going with my parents to funerals, being there, seeing, also in the rural area, there was a difference in how things were done in the rural, where you would have pretty much a lot of the village being there. Everybody who was available, would come and would take it from the home, and you would walk in the back of the a car that would carry the coffin to the cemetery, and it was an entire procession and ritual, and I was observing as a child. And I remember my father saying that dead with dead and living with living. And I think it stayed, he was saying that, I think he said it quite a number of times, Alina, please remember, it's dead people with dead people, and living with living. So he was trying, I think, to instill this idea of there is a separation, do not get stuck, do not go into that land, there is a separation, stay here with the living. And somehow that reverberated when he left, and all of those things, it came to mind what he was saying. So then this you see this um relationship with the death, it is also of what I've been given in what was said to me when we together walked that path or said goodbye to somebody who was dear. So actually I did go to funerals, and I now, wherever they are, and in their energies and spirits, I want to say thank you, mom and dad, for allowing me to be in a safe space with you, so you could kind of explain or allow me to experience in a safe way, because they were there, to help, contain, address the question, comfort, and also to be part of that moment, because otherwise, how would I have known? It's like there's a memory that happens or a sharing that happened with a community, and you're not part of it. So it gave me a depth of understanding about the power of the rituals of passing, and how important and healing it is to go and be in that time, be in those days. And so in our rituals, and you see we kind of segue to the next topic. In our rituals, it is that you place, the person, the deceased, it is in a chapel, and then 3 days, somebody from the close family, they sit with them, and they kind of welcome all the people that come to say goodbye, so the news travel, you find it in that chapel, and then when the funeral is. So it's a short type of process, 3 to 5 days, no longer usually. And in that space and time, everybody kind of takes time away from work or whatever. It's like life stops to go and honor that person. And then somehow you get to see people, because that's why I said we have the weddings, the baptism, and the funerals are the moments when you get to see your family, so actually it is a moment of profound connection, because it's like there's nothing that cannot stop in front of death. So that's another thing that I have learned, that there's nothing more important, because that happens only one time, and that only one time you get the chance to go there and be with others and say goodbye and do all of those things. So I'm so grateful. I don't think I've realized it until now when we're having this conversation, how grateful I am that my family, my parents allowed me to be there with them in this, because there was a learning that even as a child, I can see myself through the eyes of a child. I wasn't so touched about the emotional. I would cry, of course, because sometimes you have part of the rituals, you have these women that are crying their eyes out, and you're like, why did you go, and all of this. And I think there's a lot of us who try to protect the children and everybody, because it can be a traumatizing process. It's like, I'm not sure exactly, I'm not related, I didn't know the person who's there, but it is like your entire, like your hair, is raising your hair when you hear somebody going through this process. And that can be very confronting, so so in the part of the ritual. Now I have to say, nowadays it doesn't go that way. um I think it's mostly in the rural area, but there is a value even for that, into that, if you come to think that there is somebody who is crying the tears and is expressing, the feelings of sorrow and of sadness of an entire community that is there in the back. Yes. And there's also something about how ridiculous you feel, or, well, can't you do it quietly, to just be quietly. And that relates to my experience of rituals of passing, for instance, in this culture where I live now in the Netherlands. And we're not going to go there. I really want to have a conversation. My plan is to invite one or two people from here, from Netherlands, to to accompany and talk about this. But just in reflection, this is such a quiet space dedicated on celebration PowerPoints about people's life. And for me, it was so like, wow, it's so different, so different. So that's why there isn't right or wrong. But when you allow yourself to go into this conversation, I find it so eye-opening and so enriching. So to go into this conversation without judgment, with just a curiosity, a childlike curiosity about
Yeah.
every your ritual. So, and of course I am curious what is arising in you and living in you when you hear this story.
Yeah, it's also very healing, Alina. It's not just, it's not the similarity that we have in our rituals and our concept. It's also very healing to talk about it, to share it, you know, and also to bring awareness, to it, even for ourselves, you know. Yeah,
And it also
like,
makes me, I'm sorry to it brought it there was a thought, looking at my experience and the fact that my parents actually, I saw a benefit of having the children. And if I look back last year when my father-in-law passed, of the conversation that happened within our family, and I saw that, my mother-in-law and my dear husband, they were like, yeah, is it a place for children or not? And we
yeah,
engaged in this conversation, and I said, I came from a perspective, having the experience that I had, I said, but I am there with them so they can experience it. Especially the Romanian rituals, because they won't see this here, right? Um, and I want them to have this experience, but I want it because they might not realize what is happening now, but as me, as an adult now looking back, I find it so empowering. But somehow I didn't manage to make myself understood or crossed. And then it was about respect, so what do you want, because somehow it is our loss, but it is your loss. And then what serves you, because you're the ones here. I am the support person, and there is a value even for this, Melinda. I'm thinking, because we didn't know what we're going to talk about, but maybe in our next conversation we can talk about, when you go through this process, how is it when it's happening to you as a daughter, to you as a sister, to you as a, well, thank God we don't have the experience with a wife, but with a wife, in the sense that you are the partner
Yeah,
supporting, and it's happening for the other. And I think it is very interesting to look, how was it different for us, or maybe we can do that in our next
yeah. Yeah, our
conversation.
part two.
Part two, yes. So coming back to the rituals of passing, what are they and what is their purpose, and also what came up for you?
Yeah, like I said, so when I was a kid, it was so I was so detached, so when you're involved, apart from experiencing it as a child, you actually grieve together. You are supported, you're seen, and yeah, I have to say you made the right decision, or a very good decision, to involve the children for your late father-in-law's, rituals of passing and bringing them. It's like what you experience in the olden days. We also have all these crying women, so they were part of the whole mourning. They, however, we have evolved to not have that now. So they will cry for the whole family. They will cry for the whole community. They will really will. Yeah, it is rather traumatizing, because they, yeah, they actually do it very loudly as well. For the Chinese here, we have very similar. So we have the wake, we call it. So it's done either at home or in a funeral parlor. So there's a special place that you can rent, and then you can do your wake. So it's also still within the 3 days, 5 days, and the 7 days. However, we have this little cultural difference. Okay, it's like, when can you do the wake at home is when the person has passed away at home. So if the deceased has passed away in the hospital, you can't bring the body home and have the wake in your house. Uh, that's one of the Chinese culture that we observe. However, you can do it outside the house. So a lot of our houses here, we have a little porch, where it's just outside of your house, so you can do the wake there, because in the olden days there is not so many funeral parlors. However, now funeral parlors are more preferred choice, at least for the urban, compared to the homes, because the homes, it can be a little disturbing for the neighbors, because we still have the ritual of chanting the prayers, and a lot of guests coming to pay respect. So um, that's one of the very, very big difference in terms of our culture. I think, to have it at home or to have it at a funeral parlor, whether is it something that allowed or not allowed, to have. And also we have another thing that we observe is if your parents had a wake, that is 3 days, or so for the children, they cannot have a wake of more than 3 days, so they cannot kind of like surpass their parents. So if the parents have 5 days, you can have 5 days or 3 days. But if your parents have 3 days, you cannot have, as a children, as their child, no matter what age you are at when you passed away. Your parents could have passed away like 30 years ago, but as a child, as the children of theirs,
And who
you
remembers this, Belinda? I mean,
you have to remember that.
who holds track? I'm just curious. Who's the accountability there? In saying how many days did we do the week?
Yeah,
For
yeah.
our death.
That's when the eldest comes in. So like, every time there's somebody who passed away in the family, then it's like, oh, do you remember how many days did grandpa did his, wake, and the funeral and all that. So, so it's like you can't have it, you can't have more days than they do. I'm not sure whether this is going to evolve as well, to something completely different. However, what I shared is it's a very Taoist practice, and Taoist is very, very, uh, they practice and observe the rituals very carefully and more stringent than the Buddhists. For the Buddhists, it's a little bit different. They believe that once a person has deceased, and the soul has left the body is just a body, and then you get reincarnated, or you go, yeah, you go through the next stage of your journey, so
Right. Right.
they don't mourn, or they don't have funeral as elaborate and as the wakes as stringent as the Taoists. However, the what we have now in the urban areas is actually a combination, a marriage between the Taoist and the Buddhist practice. you know. So we have chanting. We don't observe the Taoist, because the Taoist, you have the bridge, you have to help the deceased move over to the next realm, by during the whole week, so you have to keep carrying a little tablet where it represents where the soul is for the time being, you know and because we believe that that's a transition window. So during the transition window, you need a place for the soul to be. So they usually are in this tablet that is a symbolism of where they are. Then you have all this ritual of carrying them across the bridge, because that's the Chinese belief that the next world, the next realm is across a bridge. you know and there are things that you say when you go through the bridge, so that your loved ones will have an easier transition, and they know that they remember to cross the bridge. Otherwise, we believe that they're stuck.
And I'm curious because you said, we talked about the wake, and then what is happening? Is it a burial? Is it a cremation? And then what is happening? Do you have like rituals after that are on number of days after, or what's the ritual there? And what is actually the purpose also of the ritual next to the ritual?
Yeah, so the wake is where you keep the body in the coffin,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's usually that I mentioned, like 3 days, 5 days, or 7 days. So there's no even numbers. There's the odd numbers. So there's always 3, 5, or 7. And that's the time when you receive guests. You People will come and pay honor and pay respect, and say their goodbyes.
Mm-hmm.
And also there's also another belief that we have for the Taoists, not for the Buddhists, that even though the person is deceased, so then you just left with the body. If you do it too soon, so we don't choose one day, right? It's very rare occasions is one day. However, like I said, I live in a very multicultural, multi-ethnic country. So we have the Muslims. The Muslims will do it in one day. They will not keep the body for more than a day. They have to do it immediately. The next day, they keep the body for one day. That's the max that they do. And for us, the Chinese, we believe that we have to keep the body from all this, because the Taoists believe that, even though the disease has left the body, but they can still feel their body. So if
Mm.
you cremate, too early, that's why there's no 1 day for the Chinese. And if you cremate too early, cremation means that you actually put the whole coffin and the body through the fire, and you get ashes at the end. So if you cremate too early, or even if you bury them too early, the body can still feel the sensation. So it's a torture.
That's an
I
interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's an interesting belief.
Yeah. So that brings to the other topic, the objective of why you want to talk about this, to have this conversation, so people are sensitive, to be more sensitive to why certain race or different culture needs more time, because of the
Yes.
belief. That's one of the belief. So we will do it in those days, 3, 5, or 7. And after that, after the mourning, after the wake, that's when you have the burial or the cremation. But during the wake, you have the crying, which we don't do anymore. That's very Taoist. And during the wake is when we believe that the soul is in transition, and that's why I told you, like, you bring the symbolism of the deceased person, and then you cross the bridge, and then you chant, so chanting, that's the Buddhist part, where we believe is a transfer of merits, Dharma, for a soul liberation, for an easier transition, also to, yeah, to liberate the karmic debt, you know, and
Right. And
for an
then
easier transition, and also going to, yeah, to nirvana. That's what the Buddhists and the Chinese,
for nirvana. Okay, it's good to know. So for us, it's heaven, and for you is nirvana. And do you have rituals after that? A number of days after the uh,
Yes, yes. So how the rituals after that is more observed by very immediate family or very very close family. So, like, basically the first, what do you call it? The first tier of family. The very immediate, and then probably the siblings of the deceased as well. So the first one would be called the first 7 day after the person has passed on. Uh, you know, we believe that the soul, wherever they have transitioned to or in transition, they will come back to visit the place of their home where they were living. So we
we
will
have
have
that belief, but for us it's 40 days. It is the
oh
40 days the soul is traveling to say goodbye, and it might be that it can come in dreaming. Yeah, so in
yeah
dreams you might dream of the person, if the person has some unfinished affairs with you, and then might come to say goodbye. So that's why usually people ask each other, did you dream of this person in these 40 days, because is there is a mean of communication or something like this. So there is something about that.
yeah that's what we believe too. And so the first ritual is the first 7 days after the passing. On that day, we will do offerings. The favorite food of the deceased. And you will offer it, and you have chanting. You have a little prayer for that person, and at night, in the evening, where you actually host this prayer, is usually at your home, and where the deceased it was living before he or she passed on. And we will not come out when the sun set, after the sun has set, you know And in the olden days, they went to the extent of even, which we still do, we put their favorite drinks or food, in near where they always sit, used to sit, and their favorite place within that home. And in the olden days, they used to put flour on the floor, so to see the steps, the footsteps of yeah, where the souls has, where they came back and where they go, But now we do away without the flour, but we still maintain the favorite food. That's the favorite place. We put the picture, we put the favorite items there, as as honoring. So that's the first 7 day ritual. So every 7 days, we have a ritual. So we go up all the way to the seventh 7 days ritual, which is 49 days after passing, and 100 days. So after the 100 days, upon 100 days, the Chinese and the Taoists will believe that they have really transitioned. However, for the 49 days, we believe that sometimes they're still lingering in the realm of the living, with the unfinished business and everything. And interestingly, we the Chinese, because we believe that the sons carry the surname and then the daughters are like almost the second tier of the family. So the first ritual for the all the children, the sons and the daughters, and then the third seven rituals will be for the sons, and then the fifth are for the daughters. So we still observe that. However, the on the 49 days and the 100 days, that's observed by everybody, all the children and the immediate family. And on the 100 days, that's when there's another thing that we do apart from the first 7 days ritual that I told you, where we offer the favorite food and all that. Every day, in actual fact, for 49 days, we actually offer food, like as though the deceased is still living, because we believe that they're in transition, that they have not left. So they still have physical, humanly desires and urges and needs, So we will have breakfast, lunch, and dinner offered throughout the 49 days. Yeah, I know. I
Wow,
know.
I didn't know. I didn't know. It sounds very complex, I have to say,
It
because
is
I thought, and
complicated.
here I am thinking that our rituals are very complex, but it sounds like the family is quite involved, and the person is actually quite present if you think about it, right? So,
Yes.
so somehow it ensures that they're not physically there, but they are there.
Because we believe that they are still in the living realm, they haven't really transitioned. So and a very interesting point that you reminded me, during the wake that I mentioned, either 3 days, 5 days, or 7 days, when the family gets together to have their meals, you actually save a place at the dining table or wherever you're eating, a place for the deceased, as though he or she is still a part of your being, present.
Mm.
Yeah. So for the 49 days, that you have to serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner as though, the person is still alive and have all that humanly and
Should I
physical needs.
ask if the person was a person that was not having breakfast or was eating only one time a day? What do you do?
I
Do you go
think
and
it will
honor?
evolve. Yeah. I think it will evolve eventually,
Yes.
because a lot of us do that. What fasting, intermittent fasting.
Yes. Well, the thing is, what I'm amazed, and I didn't look up. We are addressing most of them are most of, I think, the people that will see this are from Romania. So we didn't I didn't touch a lot about the rituals of passing, rather more on their purpose. But I am so grateful for learning all of this nuances, and there's a richness in all of this these steps that are being taken. And it invites this question, because when I went and I dealt with, there's always somebody. What I took was, if you don't have an older person in Romanian, there is this saying, who doesn't have an older person, they should buy one or have one, because they seem to be the holder of this precious knowledge. Because especially in times of somebody's passing, is like, who is going to guide us through this process? Because, oh my god, I haven't done it myself. And then you want, I don't know, I don't care if I believe it or not, but I want to do things right. So I think that there is this element of, we do not mess around with death or the rituals of passing, so I think there is this difference. So, and we can still observe it. Some people go and say, no, we want to do everything, and then the family comes together. And I'm so grateful for the wonderful community that my mom-in-law has and my parents-in-law have there. And then the neighbors come, and then you cook together and you make packages, and you go, and everybody comes and helps with the car and takes people to the cemetery and all of those things. And so you can do it like this, or you can pay, and have it organized by a firm, for a funeral house. And but nevertheless, remembering in those 3 days, preparing the things that we need to go give away, in the day of the funeral, you give, it's like you leave something. You give a candle, you give, depending on how close you are from the person, the deceased. You get a larger thing, you can get a duvet, or you can get like like a tablecloth, or towels are very popular. Everybody should have towels, and then I was looking at my mom-in-law, knowing all of this. She's like a master of ceremony, because she helped others also with these rituals of passing. There was so much. And she looked at me and she said, I do. There is an expectation. When I pass, you need to do this for me. And I was like, oh my Lord. I said, seriously, can you spend some time and put it on just write it down somewhere? Because there's so many steps. And then there was somebody saying, don't worry, somebody will help you out, on this process, because you don't need to know it. It is, you will do, it will come to you, so just ask, because people come together and share this knowledge. And there was this humor also. I had, I now remember, because we were coming together also with my husband's cousin, and his wife, and we were just doing packages there. And the two of us, the new generation, were looking at my mother-in-law and her sister, which was the mother-in-law of my cousin's wife. And we were like, so let me check again. Why are we doing this? What is this purpose? And what is this serving? And then we get the evil eye, from them. And it's like, we do not challenge it. We do not question. That's what we need to do. That's what we are doing here. And obviously, me being from Yash, and my cousin wife being from Bucharest, so we were from different places. So who would be to challenge the rules of the place? And ultimately, no matter how rich or not, it was about, well, ultimately, the person needs to do what they want to do to honor the person, whatever manner they have, how much money they're spending. Or it is not for us to judge, because for me, I've realized that this is her mourning. This is the way that she wants to honor the other person. It is actually, it's an act of love. That's all you have, and you want to give to the other something to stay there. So when you're going to use that towel, or when you're going to use that cup or something, you will know that that was given in the moment of separation. Something was left, so that's why I said, what is their purpose? And I think there is an invitation for everybody to think, everybody who's maybe experiencing or struggling, where it's like, oh, my mom, she wants to do this, or I don't understand why they want to do all of those stuff. It is not to judge it with your mind, but embrace it with your heart and kind of give space or accept for what it is, the manner that the person who navigates this, doesn't matter in which culture they want to do this, because ultimately you get to do this once. You get married, you might be getting married a couple of times, you might
Yeah.
experience baptism quite a couple of times, but in terms of funeral and death and dying, this seems to be not a revolving door. Well, not according to the Buddhist, I get it, and probably Hindus, and but it doesn't matter, it's still one door for this iteration, this body, this journey, and I think that's what I want to, that was my takeaway out of many experiences. And by the way, after wearing that hat, but I was jokingly asking her, so why are we doing this again, and why is this, and what is the purpose of this, and partially was curiosity, partially was humor, and also mentioning, I think my father-in-law is here, is floating, and is having a good laugh. Honestly, is having a good laugh, seeing how everybody is here, you are bossing us around, and we're doing all of those things. But that, I think the act of being together and doing that, being busy, sharing memories, sharing knowledge. This is also knowledge passing because I was like, Flory, just take, we need to take notes. Yeah, we go while it's fresh, we go, we take notes, and we want to do this as an act of love, ultimately, and a profound respect and connection for the person and their beliefs, whatever they, it's about honoring very, very much. I think for me, this ritual of passing, and it's at peace that you fulfilled whatever they wanted you to fulfill, and yeah, you have honored that relationship.
Yeah, I truly agree. And also, that's why the few days, because as as the closest people, to the deceased, you get many opportunity to say goodbye, and the unfinished goodbyes and whatever you have not said, because first come the shock, right? And then, yeah, then as days goes by and you remember, and the togetherness with the family and all that, it is very healing, to grieve together. And yeah, it's definitely an opportunity to keep saying goodbyes and keep saying what you need to say.
Yeah, so I do notice that our
Yeah.
storytelling, got us to over the hour, so to speak. And I hope, look, this is a start of a series of conversation. And I think I made a note that for our following conversation, maybe we will talk about it from different perspectives. So, how do you engage, with multiple hats and things like that? Maybe also look a little bit more into what is grieving and all of those things. Not necessarily, again, from a technical point of view, but more from a practice. I hope that this is a beginning. Whoever is going to watch it now or later, I hope you're taking something out of this, or at least our intention of awareness, of learning something about a new culture. And by all means, please bring your suggestion, comments, ideas. Through the comments, and we will come back if you have any questions, of course, and we will see each other in a month because we'll make it a monthly habit. And I am taking with me from today this energy of peace and of gratefulness, of having a partner to share this journey with. And I'm curious, what are you taking with you?
For me, it was a very profound thing when you say it's an act of love. That's really, that will
Awesome.
stay with me
Yes.
and honor.
Well, so thank you very much. And yes, let's happily have this conversation in May. And wishing you all a wonderful month until we see each other again.
And thank you for watching.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.